Hey everybody. So this is a video to help you remember how we multiply fractions. This is the very beginning, right? We're going to multiply fractions by whole numbers and use your intuition. That means use what you know makes sense already. So let's start off with 1/3 times 2. Remember, another way you can think of this is 2 times 1/3, right? That's called the commutative property. With multiplication, it doesn't matter which number comes first. So if it helps you to think of this as two groups of 1/3, that might be easier than thinking of 1/3 of 2, right? So feel free to switch them around to suit you, to see what makes sense. And remember that multiplication means groups of. So here we have a problem that says two groups of 1/3. Now you should be able to use your intuition to just say to yourself, all right, let me see, if I have 1/3 and then I have another 1/3, that should make 2/3. And that makes sense. That's what I mean by intuition. So when you see multiplication, don't get confused and say, I don't get fractions. Just take a second, take a deep breath, and think about what it means, right? We know that that should mean 2/3. I have two of these things. I have two of these, so they should be 2/3, yeah? Okay, so how do we get there? Remember, when you have a whole number and you're multiplying by a fraction, everything needs to be turned into fractions, right? If there's fractions in your problem, think of everything as a fraction. That's the best way to do this. The only way to do this, really, right? So we're going to say this is really a fraction. A whole number has a denominator of 1. And then we're going to multiply straight across. I'm going to multiply the numerator times the numerator. 2 times 1 is 2. Got it. And the denominator times the denominator. 1 times 3 is 3. And that's it. So it makes sense. You could probably do it mentally, right? Knowing that it was 2/3. And it's easy to multiply. All right, let's try another quick one here. I'm going to erase some of these things. Let's try 3 groups. 3 groups of 1/3. Notice how I write the whole number kind of up in the air? That's because the first thing I want to do is change it to a fraction, right? I'm going to put a denominator under there. Well, I take it back. That's not the first thing I want to do. The first thing I want to do is try and estimate, right? I want to think about how many that would be, right? If I had 3 groups of 1/3, that should make, well, 3 of these, right? We'd call those 3/3. 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. That's 3 of them, right? So I'm going to write down 3/3. That's what my answer should be. That's what I expect it to be. So let's see if that's true, right? First thing, let's go back here and do the math. I'm going to change my whole number to a fraction. I'm going to multiply straight across. 3 times 1 is 3. I'm going to take my denominators and multiply straight across. 1 times 3 is 3. And there we go. That's our answer, 3/3. Of course, 3/3 can be simplified to 1, right? So you could write that as 1. That's its simplest form. All right? So multiplying isn't too hard to make sense of, and the actual math operation isn't too hard either. Let's take a look at some other ones. Let's try 2 groups of 1/2, right? Let's begin by estimating, right? I'm going to take a half, and I need 2 of them, right? So what am I going to do? Well, I am going to take another one, and I'm going to try and paste it on here real quick. That's what I'm doing. There it is. 2 of them should make 2 halves. Let's see if that's the case, right? First of all, I want to write this. I'm going to switch colors here, right? I'm going to write my whole number as, that's my 2. I'm going to write it as a fraction. 2 wholes, right? Denominator of 1, times 1/2, or 2 groups of 1/2. And it should come out to be 2 halves, right? Let's multiply straight across. 2 times 1, 2. 1 times 2, 2. And of course, you know that that number equals 1 whole. And you can see it on the number line here. It equals 1 whole. All right, let's try one that doesn't land on a nice whole number and see if we can still make sense of it. Erase all of these. What if we had 3 groups of 1/2? right? I'm going to write my 3 whole number as a fraction. 3 whole numbers times 1/2. All right, so I think that we should be able to figure out that that's going to make how many halves? Right? If I have 3 halves, it should be, well, it should be 3 halves. And where is it going to come out to be? Well, it's hard to see on the number line, so let's check it out. Let's do the math, because I can't tell, in my mind, I can't kind of estimate where this is or understand where that is on the number line. So let's do the math, right? 3 times 1 is 3. 1 times 2, that's denominator times denominator, is 2. And that can be simplified, right? I'm going to say how many groups of, right, down here, how many groups of 2 2ths, or 2 halves, sorry, couldn't resist, 2 halves are there in 3, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say how many groups of 2 are in 3. And the answer is 1. Right? So this, this is the same thing. This is my division problem. 3 divided by 2. Right? That's going to tell me how many groups of 2 halves I can take out of 3. And the answer is I can take out 1 whole group, right? I took out 2 2's. And is there anything left over? If I take these out, yes, I have 1/2 left over, right? So right, I take this, I see I have 1. And what are we talking about here? Halves. I have 1/2 left over. It's 1 1/2. Okay? So when you see an improper fraction, think of it as a division problem. It will tell you how many groups of a whole number you can take out, right? How many groups of 2 over 2, or whatever your denominator is. And it will tell you how many are left over, right? These make sense, right? 2 halves plus 1/2 is 3 halves. But division will tell you how to find that much faster. Right? So there we are, 1/2, and it matches our books. It matches our number line. Okay, so there we go, multiplying fractions. It gets more complicated, but that's the first one. All right, thanks.